Hi guys, good morning. I hope you are able to hear me. Can anyone please confirm?
Yes, Bhaskar.
Yes, Bhaskar.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
thank you. So in the last session, we started talking about a data factory, right? So data factory, the major responsibilities of our data engineer is we are going to do the data ingestion and we are going to do the data transformation. These two are the primary responsibilities of Azure data engineer. And what services we are going to use, it's up to the business requirement. We may use Azure Data Factory. We may use Azure Databricks also. So that is what we are talking. And we started talking about the building blocks of Data Factory. So what are the building blocks that we are having? Let me share my screen and we'll walk you through again. Just give me a minute. You please keep in mute if you're not talking. So here we have a different varieties of the sources we are going to use to pull the data, and then we are going to do the data transformation. In order to implement all this process, we need to know what are the building blocks in data factory. So the primary places. So this will be an interview question. They will give us some requirement. They will ask you what is your approach if you wanted to implement same thing in the data factory. So if that is the case, then we should know about the building blocks. So we talked about integration runtime. The purpose of integration runtime is to get the compute. And three different varieties of integration runtimes. We talked about it when we can go for Azure IR and when we can go for self-hosted IR. We have seen theoretically here, but we are going to see practically everything we are going to see. And the next one is link services. The link services is going to be address details of the data. So where exactly the data is available, that details we're going to get with the help of link services. And if you're having some experience or if you're aware of SSIS, we used to call them as a connection managers. So connection managers is nothing but link services. We used to call them as a link services in the data factory. So what details we're going to have? Data details, where exactly your data is available. If your source is a file system, then file system details. If your source is database, then database details we are going to have as part of the link services. So we have two different types of varieties for link services. One is a data store connectors and other is compute connectors. That means your data factory is providing data store connectors, which is specific to the data. And if I need a compute, because we can integrate other services also into the data factory. If you wanted to integrate Databricks, then we are going to call the notebook. So to call the notebook, we need to have a compute because notebook will be executed with the Databricks compute. So it will be executed on top of the Spark cluster. So to get the Spark cluster, we are going to use the compute connectors also from the data factory. So all these features we are having, and we completed integration runtime and link service we have seen. Now we are going to start talking about data set. So data set, what do you mean by data set? So data set also is very important if you wanted to work with the data factory. So the term will be common for everywhere. So the person who is going to deal with the data definitely is aware of data set. So data set is going to represent the data that is required for your process. Let's say, for example, as I said, for last example for link service, when I stayed in Chennai, to move from Chennai to Hyderabad, I contacted to Packers and Movers. I said the address details where I'm staying to collect the items. Then Packers and Movers, they will come to the particular place. They will collect the items, right? Whatever the items that you wanted to move from one location to other location. So this Packers and Movers, they're going to pack the items. So that means you may not completely move all the items. You're temporarily moving from this location to other location. Or you wanted to move few items. I wanted to keep the items in the Chennai also. So that means you're taking the required items to move. So that is what the data set. So data set represents the data that is required for your pipeline, that is required for your necessity. Okay, so whatever the connectors we have used to create a link services, whatever the connectors we have used to create a link services, the same connectors can be used to create a data set. So data set is required for source. At the same time, the same data set they have to deliver in the target. So for target also we require data set. Whenever you are moving a data from one location to other location, keep in mind we require source data set and target data set. And some places we may require only one data set, either source or target. But to move from one place to other place, 100% data set is required because we never move all the data. So we may move all the data also. To move all the data, we require data set. To move only specific data, we require data set. So that represents the data that is required for your pipeline. So how we can create a data set, we are going to see. Let me open the data factory that we have created in the last session. Let's go to the portal. To consume the services, we need to go to the portal. I'm just going to open the directly data factory. We don't need to go to the portal again because your data factory is isolated service. Let's open it. Then it is asking if you have access for multiple data factories, you have to choose the right data factory with a drop down. So I'm there with the right data factory. Let me hit on continue. So we know the navigations of this data factory. We already come across in the last session. Now we talked about the link services, right? How we can create a link services. We'll see. I just done something yesterday. That's fine. So if I wanted to create a data set, then you have to go to the author. After the link service, then we are going to use author. This author is going to be 100% development. You're going to do it. A link service is one-time activity. You're not going to do it again and again. And author, we are going to create a data set. Even we need to limit the data sets. If I have 10 members in the team, if everyone is trying to create a data set on every day, there will be too many data sets. That's not the best practice. You have to reuse the data set. You have to create a data-driven data set so that we can reduce the number of data sets, and run and maintenance is very easy. So because of that reason, in my previous project or any project, we have to give a control. We need to have a control. When someone is creating a data set, they have to explain, they have to come across the team why we are creating a data set. If we really require, then we can create it. We are not supposed to create a data set on every day, or we are not supposed to create a data set by every developer. There should be a purpose to create a data set. Okay, so I'm going to take you through how we can create a dynamic data sets in the sessions. So right after creation of the link service, we are going to the author to create a data sets here. Now you can see I have a data sets folder. So here you are going to get the ellipse button. By hitting on it, it is going to allow you to create a data set. You can see new data set. When I hit on new data set, whatever the connectors we have seen for creating a link service, the same connectors are available to create a data set also. Same to same is available. I can create a data set for structured data. I can create a data set for any kind of format that I can do it. We'll see how we are going to create a data set. So that is one of the building block. So everyone, we are going to come across it. And then we have an activity. Activities are very, very important. So many activities we are going to come across it as per our content. And activity is going to represent single processing step. Let's say, for example, I wanted to find the size of the file. To find the size of the file, then we required activity. That is what I have given. Getting the size of the file is an activity, and copying a file from one place to another place is an activity, or checking the folder existence is an activity. There are many things are there. Okay, so these are all going to be activities, and data factory is providing the various activities. Just observe here. So to consume these activities, we need to have a pipeline. So pipeline is going to be a collection of activities. You can see here. There are varieties of the activities, move and transform, and synapse activities. Of course, this is going to be deprecated very soon. And Databricks activities. So general activities I'm having. Mostly the general activities are very important for us, and move and transform activities. So activities are going to help us to do our tasks. That is what I'm having here. And if you wanted to save the data, we are going to use the data flow activities. Specifically, we are going to have a transformation here. As I said, with the data factory, we are going to do the data ingestion and data transformation, right? So data transformation that we are going to do with the help of data flow activity. But market is using up to 10% only, not more than that with the data flow. Because there are many limitations I'm having, and people are not much more interested. So people used to go for Databricks. Okay, so how we can do with the Databricks and with the data flow, we are going to see as part of our training. And pipeline is also one of the building block, as I said, and collection of activities are going to be known as your pipeline. Okay, so how we can create a pipeline, and if I wanted to do the incremental loading. So incremental loading is 1 unit of work. So in order to do this incremental loading, we required multiple activities. We cannot do with the single activity. So we need to connect to the activities sequentially or in a different parallelly. Also, we can have a connectivities. And how we can create a pipeline. So pipeline is nothing but a logical group of activities. A collection of activities is known as a pipeline. So that is going to represent a unit of work. And if you wanted to run this pipeline, or if you wanted to automate this entire process, we need to trigger this process. So once your orchestration is done, then you need to trigger the pipeline. You need to schedule it. To schedule it, we require trigger. So trigger is also one of the building block. So everyone should be aware of the trigger. On what basis we are going to trigger the pipeline. Okay, so there are multiple triggers are there. 100% there will be an interview question, that is scheduled based trigger. We are going to have scheduled trigger and tumbling window trigger. So when you explain something, you should come across with use case. You have to map it to your project. You have to map it to project, then you have to explain. Everyone knows about the schedule trigger, but you have to explain about the situation in your project. So then only there is a difference between the professional and normal training. So tumbling window also we are going to see with the situation. Everything that I'm going to take a situation and I'm going to explain about it. And event based trigger, we are going to have it. So in my experience, I came across the schedule trigger and tumbling window trigger. So these two are very, very important, and event based, we can explain about it. So these are all the building blocks we are going to have it. Now I wanted to show all these building blocks practically. So let's take a situation here. Just try to understand the requirement. You need to understand the requirement is very, very important. Okay, so once you have a requirement, what you have to do is you have to do the data discovery. Okay, you are not supposed to go and implement directly. You have to do the data discovery. So what do you mean by data discovery? So you have to identify what is your data source. You have to identify what data sources are required for your requirement and what tables are participating, what columns are participating. Okay, so is that incremental loading or is that full loading? You have to decide it. And then what are the key columns? Let's go for IL. If it is IL, then what is the filter columns? What filter columns we are having? And what are the key columns? What is the size of the data? All this comes under and data types. What are the source data types? And target data types. Because target data types, when I say target data types, you may think that ADLS Gen 2 is a file system. So file system may not support data types. Of course, file system will not support data types. But why I'm talking target data types? Because we are going to create a delta tables. Okay, so delta tables also is required data types. Because if your source is Oracle, if your target is delta tables, then data types will be different. You have to make sure the data types also make some problems. I came across it. So sensitive or data types like floating data types, or the size of the number. If you have an ID column, if you have a number data type in the source, and if you keep the integer data type here, then it is going to have a problems. Not all the time, sometimes. So one of the situation I faced it. So identifying all these things, we can call it as a data discovery. Okay, so you're going to take 1 or 2 days time to understand this when you get a requirement. So once you're sure about this, then you're going to start doing the implementation. At least 1 day is required to do this data discovery. Okay, so if you have any question in the data discovery at the time of understanding your requirement, you can check with the business analyst. So business analyst will be there for your requirement. You have to check with them. Let's say if you're not in a position to identify the key columns, your source key columns different, your target key columns will be different again. It may be same, it may be different. So what is this key columns? Why we need to have a key columns, and what are the filter columns? Why we require filter columns? We are going to come across in our regular sessions. So at this point of time, I cannot touch all the data discovery points. Okay, so we are going to come across it. Now I have a first use case. I wanted to create a pipeline to move the data from input directory to output directory. Just keep these points highlighted. Input directory to output directory within the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Just try to understand the use case, what I am trying to do it. So here my source is what? My source is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And my target is also Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Okay, so source is cloud and target is cloud. Or simply I wanted to say Azure Storage is the source, Azure Storage is the target. So to read the data from Azure data storages, we required IR, right? First, you need to identify what IR is required. Okay, so in this particular case, Azure integration runtime is required because my data source is Azure Data Store. And my target is also Azure Data Store. Then for loading also, I require Azure integration runtime. I hope you're fine with why we require Azure integration runtime now. Without integration runtime, you are not supposed to run, or you cannot get the compute. If you don't have a compute, then you cannot run anything. You require a processor to run the system. The same way here, we required integration runtime to run the job. So since it is a Azure integration runtime, we don't need to set up it. It is going to come with the default when you create a data factory. So we have seen how we can create a data factory in the last session. So first point here is what services we required in order to implement this use case. In real time, every setup will be done. But when it comes to here, we have to understand what services are required is first is ADF is required. We already done the setup of ADF ADF in the last session. Just go through the last session. And the second is ADLS Gen 2. Now I'm going to show you how we can set up the Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. I told you this is specifically designed for big data processing. Why it is specified for big data processing is the data is going to be hierarchical manner. It is going to be there. So folder or folder hierarchy will be there. Like, okay, so when it is having a folder hierarchy, it will go to the specific place to find the files. So we'll show you while creating this ADLS Gen 2, we are going to see why it is there for big data processing, why it is going to accelerate the big data processing, or why it is specifically designed for big data processing. So as a data engineer, I'm sure we are going to use only Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. In my entire experience, I came across only ADLS Gen 2. So we have a databases. Forget about the databases. ADLS Gen 2, we are going to use 90%. 90% of the time, we are going to use ADLS Gen 2 as a storage. So that may be source, that may be for target. So why I'm saying this is a source and why I'm saying this is the same account will be target. When we come across the project, you can feel what is the why I'm saying for source and target. So we are going to spend more enough time with the data with a project so that you can see how or how we are going to use as a source and target. Now let's go to the data factory. I'm just taking out this. So I'm having a brand new data factory. I'm not having anything here. Only thing that I'm having here is integration runtime. So first thing is you need to have an integration runtime. So integration runtime is up and running. It is already available. By default, it came with the data factory. That is one thing. The second thing that we need to do is link service. So we need to create a link service. It's a one-time activity. We are not going to do again and again. So this link service we are going to create based on the account. We have to create an account. Based on the account, we are going to create a link service. But we have a ADLS Gen 2. We don't have a ADLS Gen 2. We have to create a ADLS Gen 2. Let's create it. Let's go to the portal. Portal.azure.com to go to the portal. You can search for storage accounts. The last session, we have seen how we can create a data factory. Now I'm going to show you how we can create a storage account because we have to do our practice. Let's go to the storage accounts. Plus create. Yesterday, we created a resource group called RG1. You can choose the existed resource group. So creating a resource group also is not going to be again and again, we are going to do it. So this creation will be done by administrators. All the setup will be taken care by administrators. We are not going to be responsible for that. For practice, for our own practice, we have to do all the setup. So resource group is created yesterday. I'm just going to use the same resource group.
Sir, one small doubt, sir.
Yeah, please.
So in the subscription, when we try to set up in ADF, it is showing Azure subscription one, sir, that we can keep default only.
You can keep default, no problem, no worries. If you want to rename, you can rename. I'll show you how we can rename if you want to rename. And then we are taking a storage account. So storage account details we need to provide here. Whatever the service that we are going to take it, provide the service name. I'm just providing the service name here. Bhaskar Mate 01 ADLS. I'm just giving some name. I'm just giving it. You can give any naming standard and make sure to have a region. When you're taking any service, every service comes from some region. So region is nothing but collection of data centers. From where you are taking this service, we need to specify, because the same service is available in central India, same service is available in South India, and same service is available in West US. You have to specify the location. So I always recommend to have a nearest location. So I'm just going to take my nearest location, that is central India. And primary services I'm having here, blob storage and Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. So I'm just going to take this option and let's go to the next. After providing all these details, you have to go to the next step. So creation of the storage account in real time is not our job. Only we are going to use it. We are consumers. So to make this ADLS Gen 2, we need to make sure to check this checkbox. When the moment to check this checkbox, it is going to, your data lake storage Gen 2 will be used for big data processing. So otherwise, it is going to be blob account. So it's a traditional account, or of course it is, we are using this one also, but this is for general purpose, and ADLS Gen 2 is for big data processing. As a data engineer, we are not going to use for general purpose. We are not going to use that account. We are always going to use ADLS Gen 2. So no one care about if you don't know this account. Everyone care about ADLS Gen 2 if you say, I don't know ADLS Gen 2. So because always we're going to use this. So it is going to accelerate your big data analytics workloads if you use ADLS Gen 2. Okay. So let me check this checkbox. You have to make sure to check this checkbox for practicing. It's one-time activity. So once you're done, you just leave all the options because we are not responsible for them. For our own practicing, this is much more enough for us. Let's say review plus create. And hit on create. Let it create. So it takes less than a minute. Now it is done. Let's go inside the data source. Let's go to the source. This is the name of the storage account. For this storage account, you have to create a link service. So link service will be decided based on the account. Based on the account, it is going to be decided. Okay, so I'm going to use the account for source and target. Okay, so one account I'm using it. So I can use it is for source and for target. Okay, so in real time, you'll be having a different accounts also. It's all depends. You may have a same account, you may have a different account. So let me create a link service. Let's go here. I need to create a link service. I do not have any link service in the data factory at this point of time. Let me hit on plus new. So what type of link service it is? It is related to data link service, right? So data store link service, it's not for compute. So I'm going to use the data store connectivity. My data store is available in the Azure. You can choose this one, or you can also search directly in the search place also. It's up to you. So I'm just going to use this navigation. You can see all these connectors are related to Microsoft Azure. So there is a blob storage, general storage is also available. Okay, I'm just going to take a Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. If you have a data in the blob, if you have a data in the blob storage account, you can also take this one. Mostly you are going to use this one. 90% of the time you are going to use Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 only. Even if you wanted to use this, there will be no much differences you feel, except the storage mechanisms. Navigation's look and feel is very much similar. Let's take this Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 and hit on continue. So once you hit on continue, it is asking the name of the link service. The name of the link service, I'm taking link service underscore ADLS. I wanted to give the generic naming standard. You can give, even this one also you can use as part of your project. There will be no issues. So link service underscore ADLS. And then what it is asking, this link service is dependent on the integration runtime. Without integration runtime, you cannot go to the location. Without vehicle, you cannot go to the location to collect the items. The same way here, to collect the data, we require link service. To create a link service, we require integration runtime. Without integration runtime, you cannot create a link service. So auto resolve integration runtime is Azure integration runtime. You are using it. So there is an authentication type. For time being, you just leave this authentication types. Okay, so we have a various types of authentication types we are having. I'll talk about it. So at the time of interview sessions, I'll talk about these options. And I wanted to take a subscription. Without subscription, you cannot use the data factory because it is a pay as you go. If you have a free trial subscription, you can use the free trial. And in my case, I have a paid subscription. I'm taking whatever it is, whatever the type of subscription it is, you have to choose that. And then storage account name. So just now we created this storage account name. I'm just taking made01 ADLS. Your node may have a different storage account name. That is fine. You can also follow in the similar way. Okay, so whatever the naming standard you have, that you can take it. And then I'm just checking, I'm just leaving many options for time being. I'm just leaving as it is default, like parameters, advanced. They're very important to make a dynamic. We are going to see dynamic connection managers also. So one link service can use for multiple account will be same, and I can go for different connectivities. I can change the connectivity. So how we can change with the help of parameters, we are going to see at the time of project. But here I'm just going to take a static values. Let's make a test connection before hitting OK. Now connection is successfully done. Let's hit on create. Now link service, what type of link service it is? Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 type. We are connecting to the storage Gen 2. So once link service is done, so two are done here. IR is available, IR is done, and link service is done. Next is what? Data set. We have to work on creating a data set. To create a data set, we have to go to the author. And creation of the data set also, we have to create a as less as possible. If we created too many hundreds of data sets, it's very, very difficult to go for run and maintenance. So let's try how we can create a data set. Let me hit a new data set. Now I can see the similar kind of connectivities, right? I've used this Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 to create a link service. The same thing is available for creating a data set also. Let me hit on Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, hit on continue. Now here, your ADLS Gen 2, not only that, it's a file system, right? So file system is going to have a varieties of the files. I have a array of files, binary files, delimited, Excel, Iceberg, JSON, and Parquet. Not this Parquet, it's I think ORC. Yeah, it's a ORC. And this is Parquet and XML. out of all this is important, and this is very, very, very important, and this is also is important. Okay, so these three files I'm going to take you through, but basically this ORC and Avro, if you have a Hadoop, then people used to go for that. And for Spark, we are going to use Parquet very frequently. And JSON files also we are going to use. And as part of our sessions, I'll take you through as much as possible. And since it is a Microsoft, they have given Excel also, but basically we don't go for Excel. Not recommended to go for Excel. We will be having CSV files, JSON files, and Parquet files. If you know at least one format of the file, then working with other formats is easy. In the initial stage, I'm going to take you through the CSV files, but I'm going to touch CSV, JSON, and Parquet as part of the data factory. And I have other options also. If you want to try, you can try. I'll give the files with the Avro extension and ORC extension. You can try. But as part of the Databricks, we are going to see this Avro and ORC also. Yeah.
And binary, sir.
Binary also, I'll give it if you can try. Okay, so but basically people used to go for delimited because if they have given the file in a CSV files, when they export and giving the files, then mostly they're going to give a CSV format. So it's all depends on the requirement. Okay, if they have given a binary files, then you should read the data from the binary file. So from binary to Parquet, we are going to convert it. From the CSV to Parquet, we are going to convert it. And if it is a database, from database to Parquet, we are going to convert because the Spark will go with the Parquet very frequently because it is very faster. And up to 75% your size of the file is going to be reduced if you go with the Parquet. So because of that reason, I used to concentrate more and more on Parquet.
Text file generally support binary file.
Which one? Which one?
Text file, TXT file.
Yeah, of course. Text files will be supported with the binary, but basically not recommended. If it's all depends. If they give a binary file, then we are going to read the data from the binary file. So reading is not a much difficult. If I explain three of the formats, then you can work with other formats. Okay. So what is our source here? My source is CSV. It's a comma separator. So data is going to be there with the comma separator or a tab separator or any separator that we may have it. Mostly you're going to have a comma separator or tab separator. If it is a tab, then a dot tab. If it is a CSV, then dot CSV. Okay. And let me take a delimited text. Let's hit on continue. Then we need to keep the name of the data set. The name of the data set, I'm saying ds underscore. So I'm used to give a data set name where exactly the file is available. The data set is going to represent where exactly the data set is available. Okay, I'll come to this name and let me take the link service. Without a link service, you cannot create a data set. So that means data set is dependent on the link service. Link service is dependent on the integration runtime. Now it is asking what is the file path, where exactly your file is available. So I wanted to create a few things in the storage account. Let's go to the data storage. In the data storage, there is a containers. Hit on containers plus container. So I'm going to create a container with the name data files. It's a root directory. Like in our operating system, the way you're going to have a root directory or C drive or D drive, something like that, it is similar to a drive. Hit on create. Inside this data files, I wanted to create a input directory. Inside this data files, I wanted to create a directory called input directory because from input to output, I wanted to bring it. Let's hit on add directory. Let's keep the input directory. Now directory is available. That means your input is ready. I have to keep the file. Let me duplicate this space. So one is pointing to the input directory. First tab, I wanted to map to input directory. The second tab, I wanted to map to output directory, but output directory is not available at this point of time. No output directory. I am not going to create an output directory. I will ask my data factory to create a directory. So data factory will create it. You don't need to create it. So data factory is having a capability to create a directory if the directory is not available. So just set up only input and output will be taken care by your data factory. So I wanted to keep the file as per this requirement, customer.csv. Let's upload the file here. However, I'm doing the same way, you just do it. Just follow with me. Let's upload, browse for files. So I'm going to take the file called customer.csv. I'll share all the sample data with you, download the sample data and keep in your system. If I take the customer file, then just take the customer file. If you want to explore later that, you can take anything. But at least one time you have to do practice whatever I explained. Later that you can take any example or any data set for your practice. Let's open it and upload it. Now file is uploaded in the input. File is available in the input. In the output, first of all, I don't have an output directory. In the input, data files, input and file. The same details I'm going to give in the dataset name. DS underscore, DS represent datasets. Data files is the name of the container. Input, it's a subdirectory of your data files. And name of the file is customer. So my file is available. Based on my file availability, I have just given the name of the dataset. You can give any naming standard. Okay, so I'm just taking like that. And then link service we have created. I'm just taking that link service we have chosen from the drop down. And then it is asking the file path. If we don't give this link service, then we cannot connect to the ADLS from the ADF. So to connect to that, we need to have a link service. So link service is having address details of your data. You can browse it. Hit on browse. Where is this? I created with the same place, right? Okay, so let me take it again back because I don't have an option to refresh it here. Okay, it is getting in. Let's see. Otherwise, I have to cancel it and I have to come back. Now you can see it is there. So data files. Inside the data files, I have an input directory. Just now we created the input directory. Inside the input, I have a customer.csv file. You just select it. Now the path of the data set is available here. File is available inside this file path. Data files. Inside data files, I have an input directory. Inside input directory, I have a customer.csv file. So since you're reading data with the CSV file, if the file is having the header and you have to specify first row as a header. My file is having the header, so I know about the file. The file is having the header, so I'm just going to check it. So you may have a file without header also. If the file is not having the header, you just uncheck this one. If the file is having the header, then check the checkbox. By default, it is checking. Only if you go with the delimited files, you're going to have this option. And import schema. There are three different options are there to import the schema. But at this point of time, I don't need the schema. I can go for none. So when we can go for schema, if you wanted to deal with the data, then schema is required. So what is a schema? We'll talk about it. And for time being, we just leave it as it is default with none. I don't need the schema. I just wanted to copy and paste the file. So to copy a file from one place to other place, we don't need to have a schema. Just Control C and Control V. Let's hit OK. So while creating a data set, there are properties are less. You can minimize this. And after creation of the data set, if you select the data set here, you can see more and more properties of the data set. So all these things are properties of your data set. You can see the link service, file path, compression type, column delimiter, row delimiter, all the options are available. And connections is there, a schema is there, and parameters are there. So I'll talk about all these things when the time comes. We just leave it as it is by default. And then I need to have a target. You have to create a target data set also. You have created a source data set. And what about target? You have to specify to where you wanted to keep the data. So source details are required and target details are required. To write the data into the target, Azure Integration Runtime is required to write the data into the target, and target link service is required, and target data set also is required. So link service is same, so I don't need to create one more link service. I can reuse it. But data set is different. I wanted to keep in a separate place. We don't take the data, source and target will not be same. So definitely it is going to be different. So I need to create one more data set. If you are going to use the same Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 with the same delimited CSV file, then you don't need to create a data set again. I can clone this, I can reuse it. So reusability is also important. You have to reuse the code. So if you reuse it, we can reduce the effort. So that you can do it, you can clone this data set. You can clone it. So to clone this, just hit on 3 dots. You can see there is a clone, copy and paste it. Now I'm just going to make this data set name as output. Inside output, I wanted to say it is a customer. Let's minimize this. One more data set is created. So what changes we have to do it when it is cloned, when it is duplicated, you have to change few things. The first one is pointing to the input. Now the second one is pointing to the output. So the name of the data set is fine, but what about the file path? So it is pointing to the input. You have to change this to output. Just enter output. I just entered output. Just leave the rest of the things as it is. Just for changing one place, it's just for one change. We don't need to create all the steps again. You can clone it. So whenever you are going to clone, not only your data set, you can clone the pipeline, you can clone the entire data set or entire pipeline. But you have to understand why we need to clone it. You can feel that if there is a much more reusability, then you can clone it. If there is no reusability, then you have to recreate it. Now I clone the data set. My data sets are ready. Once the data sets are ready, then you need to create a pipeline. Let's go and design the pipeline. Hit on new pipeline. You can minimize this blades. You just hit on this properties. This entire space is the design surface. The center is the design surface. Okay, we can design your pipeline. So to design the pipeline, we are going to use the activities. You can bring the activities here. Okay, so let me show you here. I'm just going to take the move and transform. So I'm going to take the copy data activity. So what is this? What is this copy data activity? So I'm just going to name this pipeline. The name of the pipeline is TL underscore move data from input to output. I'm just giving some name for your pipeline. I wanted to move the data from one place to other place. So this pipeline is having this pipeline design surface. I mean to say, when you're doing the development, you have parameters, variables, settings, and outputs. I'm going to touch each and everything as part of our regular sessions. I mean to say, as part of upcoming sessions, we are going to come across it. At this point of time, I wanted to use this copy data activity for data ingestion. I told you, as a data engineer, we are going to do the data ingestion, right? So the data ingestion is going to be happen only with the help of copy data activity. So copy data activity is used to ingest the data. For time being, we just take this one. I'll talk about this copy data activity more in detail. We are going to spend next 2 to 3 sessions. We are going to be there with the copy data only. And when I drag this copy data activity here, when I drag and drop, so it's a drag and drop. You're just dragging and dropping in the design surface. So it is asking, there are few properties are there: general, source, sync, mapping, settings, and user properties. In this particular place, there are two properties are mandatory properties. They are mandatory. That is source and sync. So I can see there is a red color ones. So that means they are mandatory properties. You have to set it. So your copy activity is required source data set and target data set. If you don't have a source data set and target data set, you cannot move the data. Now I'm just taking source data set. Just select your source data set is input customer. Select it. There are other options, so just leave them as it is for time being. Let's go to the sync. In the sync data set, I'm going to have a output data set. Now source I have taken and sync I have taken. Now this red color is gone. Once this is done, then I need to test this pipeline. You need to do unit testing, right? How can you say your pipeline is correct? You have to test it. So in order to do this unit testing, we are going to use the debug. So debug will be used at the time of development. At the time of development, we are going to use, because you have to run this pipeline multiple times. At one shot, no one will fix the everything. You have to run multiple times. To run multiple times, you're going to use the debug. Let me hit on debug. Then it is started running. In the output, you can see the status of your pipeline, how it is. The pipeline status is in progress. You can also use this refresh button to see, and activity name, what time it was started, what was the duration, and integration runtime. All the details we are going to have as part of your output. Now it was completed. How much duration it has taken? So just 13 seconds. Integration runtime. The name of the activity is copy data activity. When it was started, all these details are there inside this output. So this is for developers. This debug will be used for developers only. We're all coming under the developers. Once the development is completed, then we can think about the different things. We'll see that, how we can go for automation later. Now, I created this pipeline to move the data from input directory to output directory. From input directory to output directory. So we need to validate it, right? Once it is done, you need to validate. Go to your storage account, you just refresh it. Output is created. Did I create this output directory? No, it is created by ADF. Now let's go inside this ADF. Let's go inside this output directory. Then you can see there is a file, customer.csv file. I just kept in only input directory, but it is we are having this file in the output directory by Azure Data Factory. So that means Azure Data Factory is a process. The process will take care to move the data from one place to other place. And if you open this file and see the data, here also you can see the data here. You can see my file is having the header. My file is having the header. So I just move the data from one place to other place. That is what it is, a data ingestion. So data ingestion we are going to do with the copy data activity. Okay, so we are going to talk about more in detail about this copy data activity. Something like, if your data source is a file system, how can you copy the data? We just seen only single file. If you have a multiple files, how you're going to handle it? If you have a different formats of the files, then how you're going to do it? Or if a data source is a database, if a data source is a database, 80 to 90% is we are going to have a database is a data source. In the very starting of your work is going to be database. And some people, they may not give a direct access to the database. They will export the data into SFTP and they're going to give the access to the SFTP. You have to read the data from SFTP to ADLS Gen 2. Okay, so we are going to have a containers like landing, bronze, silver, and gold. So what is this? We'll see in our journey. Okay, so it is too early to talk about all this stuff. We are going to see. And first, concentrate activities. Try to understand the activities. Then we'll connect all together. Okay, all the dots will connect to get more clarity. Okay, so tomorrow I'm going to take you through the details of the copy data activity. Okay, so any questions? You can ask me if you have any questions.
Bhaskar,
Yeah.
once you go to that output page, the type it is showing it as blob for that customer.csv.
Okay, so you mean to say, let's
in the
close this
portal.
one.
Yeah, blob
Here,
type it is showing it as
of course,
blob.
because when you're storing the data into the ADLS, the file will be divided into blocks. Okay, file will be divided into blocks. That is what the distributed file system. Your ADLS is the distributed file system. Distributed file system, which means your ADF loaded this file into this place. And this data is going to be there with the cluster. This data is going to be there in the cluster. So cluster means collection of systems. Okay, so this is node 1, node 2, node 3, and node 4. Just imagine this file is having 10 MB. Just imagine. Okay, so 10 MB file was loaded by data factory. This was loaded by data factory. But when it is loading into this place, the file will be divided into multiple blocks. It's all taken care by internally. Okay, so block size. Okay, so the block size is by default, it is having 4 MB here. It's all depends. This will be decided by administrators. By default, Azure is giving 4 MB. Now, how many blocks will be there? Block 1 will be 4 MB. Block 2 will be 4 MB. And block 3 will be 2 MB. So block 1 will be stored in the node 1. Block 2 will be stored in the node 3. Or block 3 will be stored in the node 4. Now tell me, is your data available in a single system or multiple systems?
Multiple systems.
Multiple systems. If you have a data in the database, data will be there in a single place. So yesterday, someone asked, why don't we do the transformation in the data ingestion? Why we're doing the data transformation in the second layer? In the first layer, we are ingesting. we are ingesting is because of this. If you have a data in the multiple nodes, when you do the data transformation again with the ADF, what happens is it is going to read the data parallelly. And data transformation is going to be happen with the Spark cluster. So it's going to do the processing parallelly. It reads the data parallelly, and data processing also is going to be happen parallelly. So because of that reason, we used to go for the data transformation in the second layer. Okay. So
It will
since
store in the blob.
yeah, I am coming to your question. Now we have a data was divided into multiple blocks. So block wise we are storing the data. Because of that reason, we are saying that this blob type is a block type. Block. Okay, so for data engineers, we're always going to use the block wise. Okay, so there is a other blocks also like append block or something is there. Append is there, and no, not mesh. There is a one more is there. I think so. I forgot about it. So different block types are there. Let me show you here itself. When I upload the file, you can see that here. Append blob. So append blob will be for log files. Like if you are appending the data to the same log file, then you can use that append blob. But mostly we are going to use 100% for data engineers is blob. The data will be stored block wise. Because of that reason, we are saying blob. Okay. Anyone else? Any question? Okay, so practice is important, guys. I'll share the payment details. Okay, so just give me a minute. I'll share in a chat. So make sure to clear the payments.
Can you share the data?
Yeah, once the payment is done, basically, I'm going to share it. So I'm going to share just share me once payment is done. Let me know. I'll give the access for it. Okay, all the material sample data, and I'm going to keep all the recordings at one place to easy access. Okay, so for time being, I'm just going to give individually. But once the payment is done, once the batch is frozen, then I'm going to keep everything at one place. Okay. I'm just keeping in a chart. So please take this one. Make sure to clear the payments. Or you can take this
Bhaskar, I
one.
have one doubt.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, actually, we are talking about the copy data activity, right? So, is the data actually copied from one place to another place?
Yes, that is what it
Okay.
is. So it is going to copy. I told you just now why we are copying, because ADLS Gen 2 supports for big data processing. In the next, data transformation is very important for us. Okay. So first we are ingesting the data, then we are doing the transformation. If data source, basically you're going to have a different data sources like Oracle, maybe your data source, or SQL Server, maybe your data source, or CSV files, maybe your data source. If you apply transformation directly on a Oracle data, or if you apply transformation directly on CSV, we don't get more features of data processing. So because of that reason, we are doing a first data ingestion and then data transformation.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
So take this net to make the payments. And if you wanted to do it for PhonePe or GPay, then you can use this number. Or if you wanted to do it for account, then take this account. Okay.
Yeah, Bhaskar, yesterday actually I have created the Outlook account, and after then I have created the Azure portal account.
Okay.
Already I have giving all the details and giving all the credit card details, and 2 rupees it is deducted from my credit card. But
Okay.
after then my account is locked actually. Why it is locked, I don't know.
Did you create too many accounts with the same credit card?
No, actually I have a 2 credit card. This is my new credit card. Actually I am using.
Did you use this different account or same account? So whenever
Yesterday actually I created 2 account, but for one Outlook account, first I have created, then I have created Azure portal. Already all details I have given. But when I open first time actually Azure portal platform is opened for me. After then it is showing locked. When I feed the portal.azure.com in the the bar,
okay.
then it is showing locked actually. Why?
Okay, so I'll help you on it, Kushles. We'll talk about it. Basically, whenever you're going to create a subscription, try to have different things. Like, let's say, for example, I used one credit card. So once that is completed, if you're going for next account, for free trial account, you have a one more credit card. And if you have a one more credit card, just do everything new. You have to create a new Outlook account and new subscription with a new credit card. Then only can go for free trial. So otherwise, sometimes if you use the same account, it may be blocked. Okay, so they may not allow. Okay, so if they're not allowing, then you have to go for a different account. That is one thing. And the other thing is, even if you go for paid subscription, that is not going to make much more difference. So spending 500 to 1000 is not a big deal. You're just going to spend max to max 2 months. 1 month you're going to get free of cost, and next 2 months you're going to spend max to max 500 to 1000. If
That
you
means I have to create another fresh account, and I will go for pay as you go.
yes, you can go with the pay as you go. Okay, that's
Okay.
not a problem.
Uh,
And even if you go for we are going to talk about the project, right? For that project we required only pay as you go, because when we go for Azure Databricks, I used to go with the premium version. Okay, so if you want to practice with the Unity catalog, then definitely you cannot get with the standard. We used to get with only premium. So we required premium subscription. Go with the premium. There will be no impact, and try to follow as per my instructions. You have to do the practice.
no.
Okay.
Sir, one small doubt, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, while creating input directory, you have made one copy, sir. Like you have
Clone.
taken the clone of it.
Okay.
So I was getting confused, sir, because ADF will directly take the source to target ADF will only move, no, sir.
ADF only will
But
move. So the clone
but
the clone is target dataset we require, right? Is it correct or
okay.
not? So target dataset is required. To create again all the steps again you have to do. Okay, so to avoid that repeated steps, we can clone existed dataset and we can do the necessary changes. Okay, so start doing the practice, then you can fail. Okay, so since it is very starting day of the practice, definitely you people will be having little confusion. But once that is, once we started doing practice, then you can get more clarity on it. So just try to do whatever I have done for now, and slowly
sir.
by tomorrow end of the day, you are going to get full clarity before ending of the session on tomorrow. Because I'm going to
Okay,
talk
sir.
extensively with copy data activity.
And Bhaskar, are we going to use any authentication method like
Yeah.
token system or?
Yeah, we are going to say, okay, so forget for time being, I don't want to touch the Azure key vault. Basically, in real time, we are going to use the key vault because we don't give the passwords directly. Okay, so we need to mask the credentials. How we are going to mask them, we'll talk about it. And I don't want to touch all those things at this point of time, but I'm sure we're going to talk about it.
Okay, in the project, are we going
Yes,
to use
exactly. In the project, the link services I'm going to make dynamic, data sets I'm going to make dynamic. Of course, data sets I'm going to take you through dynamic, even our sessions apart from the project. But when it comes to the project, your link services will be dynamic, data sets will be dynamic, pipelines will be dynamic. Okay, and Azure Key Vault we are going to use to mask the credentials, and we are going to see the schedule also. And CI/CD pipelines, we are going to see how we can move the code from development to the testing environment or testing to prod environment. So we are also going to see that basically CI/CD pipelines is responsible by DevOps team. Okay, so I'm going to take you through that, how we can move the code from lower environment to higher environment.
Okay. And the triggers also, are we going to use
definitely.
event driven?
Even all 3 different triggers I'm going to show you practically.
Because basically in my organization, what happens, it is everything is event driven, because whenever the data comes.
We are going to see that.
That event is started.
Okay. Event triggers we're going to see. Event based, like, when the data is landed in the source, then we need to trigger our pipeline. Okay. We are going to see them. Any other questions?
Just if you can share the material.
I'll share, Karthik. You already paid, right? I'll share the details to you.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And please make sure everyone try to clear the payments. Then you're going to get the access for your material and the recording access. I'm giving recording access without payment for time being, but material will be saved only once the payment is cleared. Okay, then. Thank you for joining. We'll see you tomorrow to talk more in detail about copy data activity.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhaskar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.